Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to another video, and in today's video I'm going to be explaining to you all the panels in Lightroom. So basically I'm going to explain what they mean and what they are used for, so that when we're done with this video you'll be able to edit your photos and make them look as professional as possible. Now if that sounds interesting, let's hop into this video. Okay guys, before we start this video, I just want to let you guys know that this is 3 a.m. and this is the third time I'm shooting this video this night. Like, bruh, the first time I shot the video I had to leave because I had a meeting by that time. When I was halfway done, I had to go for the meeting. Second time I came in, I recorded the whole video and realized that I didn't on my mic, so there was no audio. So I'm doing this for the third time again. So yeah, I just want to let you guys know. But yeah, let's start this video. So when you open Lightroom and you look at the right side of the page, you see all these different panels. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to explain what each of these panels mean, or these tabs, whatever you want to call them. So we're just going to go from the top to the bottom. All right, let's start. And one other thing is, there's a way that we all edit our pictures, and you should keep this in mind. There are 3 steps. It's correct, color, and finishing. Now what you do in the basic panel is correct your picture. Now maybe you took the picture, wherever you took the picture, doesn't matter, you correct the picture. If the picture is too bright, you correct that. If it's too dark, you correct that. If the picture is too flat, you correct that. Okay, so let's hop into this. Okay, so the first thing you see on your basic panel is the white balance. Now I should have brought water. Now you use this to correct the white balance of your picture. So you can use this tool. You just click on it and select anywhere that is white on your picture, and it will automatically change the white balance for you. But I usually just do it manually because sometimes it gets the white balance wrong. So I just do it. I just use my eye to adjust it. Alright, so the next thing on the panel is exposure. So exposure is just how bright or dark your picture is. Contrast is the contrast slider controls how much contrast is in your picture. Now for most of my pictures I don't use the contrast slider immediately, or I rather hardly use it. I use the tone curve to add contrast to my pictures instead. I'm going to explain that one later. So this image looks okay, but I'm still going to adjust it just for this video's sake. So I'm just going to increase the exposure a little bit. I'm not going to touch the contrast. The highlights control the brightest parts of the image. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like with the highlights. So you can see when I slide it up, all the bright parts of the image blow up, and when I take it down, they come down. So I'm just going to increase the highlights just a little bit, like 5, 6. The shadows too. The shadows control the darkest parts of the image too, just like the highlights. So I'm just going to bring the shadows. I'll just bring the shadows up a little bit. Yeah. So the whites control the white point of the highlights. So they work hand in hand. So if I bring up the white, you can see that the whites in the image pops up more. When I bring it down, it makes it more even, more flat. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. The blacks, the way the whites work with the highlights, the blacks work with the shadows. So I'm just going to bring the blacks down a little bit. Now the clarity adds extra contrast and sharpness to your picture. Sometimes it's just too much. So if I slide it up now, you see that the picture looks very unnatural and it looks too gritty. We don't want that. So like I said, I don't actually slide the contrast slider. I don't put the contrast slider up. I actually add contrast through the tone curve, and then I come back to my contrast. So that also applies to my clarity. I add contrast through the tone curve and come back. If it's too much, or if the contrast isn't enough, then I come back to clarity and contrast and bump them up. So the next two things that we have here are vibrance and saturation. Now I know that a lot of people don't know the difference between these two, and I've seen a lot of people who just go to the saturation slide and slide it up and export like that. I used to do that when I was younger. Let's not do this, please. So I'm going to explain the difference between both of them. So the saturation slider controls the saturation of the picture, the colors of the picture, how saturated they are. You know, when you slide the saturation slider up, it saturates the whole image. All the pictures all the colors in the picture come out, you know, including the skin, everything. And when you take it too far, it looks disgusting. Now the vibrance is a more subtle version of the saturation slider, and what it does is it brings out the color in the picture, but it protects the skin tones. So that's one thing you should take note of, and it's more subtle. So let's take out the vibrance slider and see what it looks like. Like I said, I'm taking it up and the colors look more saturated, but in a very subtle and nice way, and the skin still looks good. So even if I take it to the maximum, like the skin still looks good. So yeah, I rather use vibrance over saturation. It's only sometimes I use saturation. So I'm just going to increase saturation, the vibrance by 10, I mean. Okay, we're done with that. The next thing is the tone curve. Now I know that a lot of you came to this video just to understand the tone curve, because it gets complicated for some people. So the tone curve is there are actually 4 tone curves. I mean 4 tone curves in Lightroom. So we have the RGB tone curve, we have the red, we have the blue, we have the green. Now what I used to do and what a lot of people do is they just control the RGB tone curve, they just adjust it, and the tone curve is divided into 3. It's divided into the shadows at the left bottom corner, the midtones in the center, and the highlights in the top right corner. So all you have to do is create an S with this straight line that we have here to create that subtle contrast. So I'm just going to touch the highlights and bring them up a little, go to the shadows, bring them down a little, very subtle. And we can see that if I take off the tone curve, we can see the difference. There's contrast in this image and it's very subtle, it's not too much. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to tackle the rest of the tone curves that we've been avoiding all this time. So you're just going to click on the red tone curve, you're going to take the highlights up, you're going to make the S curve on all these curves, you know, the exact same S curve. You're going to make it very, very subtle. So I'm just going to do that, bring the shadows down for the red. It might look a little weird, but just do that for all the tone curves and you see the difference when you're done. The green, same thing, bring up the highlights. Looks weird. Go to the shadows, bring it down a little, and you can notice that when you adjust both the highlights and the shadows for each of them, it balances the image out. So when I rose the highlights for the green tone curve, the image became green. When I drag the shadows down, it became more even. So I'm going to go to the blue and do the same thing. You see, when I drag the blue up, the image becomes more blue, but then when I go back to the shadows, it balances everything out. And we can see that this image looks way different from where we started. So if I switch it off, you can see that it also added saturation and a really nice contrast to the image. So you can also save that as a preset, so that next time you just apply it and then edit your picture. So the next thing that we have on the list is the HSL slider, HSL / color slider. And what we do here is we edit the colors individually. We tweak and adjust the individual colors in the picture. So we have red, orange, yellow, green, aqua, blue, purple, and magenta. So under each color we now have 3 sliders. We have the hue, we have the saturation, and we have the luminance. So the hue slider controls the tone of each color. So let's go to green because there's a bush behind her. If I drag the hue slider of green to the left, it gives you this brownish yellowish type of green, and if I take to the other side, it looks completely different. So that's what the hue slider is for. Saturation slider controls how saturated the color is in the image. So if I take it down, it removes all the color from the image. or most of it. Now the luminance determines how bright or dark a color is in an image. So I'm just going to adjust some of the colors to my preference. I'm going to increase the reds a little bit. Now one thing you should take note of is that orange controls the skin tones in all pictures. No matter what the color of your skin is, orange always controls the skin tone. So I never take my orange saturation past 10, just to make it look as natural as possible. For this picture, I'm just going to take it to 5. And I'm going to increase the luminance of orange by just 3, just to make her skin pop a little. Then we go to yellow, green. Increase the luminance a little. Alright, there's no aqua in this image, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. Blue, there's almost no blue in this image, so I'm just going to leave it where it is. And purple, let's see. Okay, there's a little purple in our shirt, but it's very irrelevant. I'm just going to leave it there. Magenta, okay, there's a lot of magenta in our shirt, so I'm going to increase the saturation just a little, and I'm going to increase the luminance. Yeah, okay, so that's fine. Now the next thing that we have is the split toning. Now the split toning tab helps you to control the color of the highlights and the shadows separately in your pictures. So what you can do on the system is click on Alt and drag the saturation of your highlights, and what you notice is that click on hue, sorry, and what you notice is that the saturation will be 100%, so you can actually see the color of the highlights that you're adjusting. So I'm just going to take it to an orange. Then for the shadows, I'm going to take the hue to like a blue kind of teal look. I'm just going to increase saturation a little. If you take it to the highest, you can actually see it, but it's supposed to be a very, very subtle thing. You're not supposed to increase saturation too much. I'm just going to make mine 8 for the highlights, and for the shadows, yeah, I'm not really feeling that. I'm going to make it 3. So that's fine. The next thing that we have here is the detail. Now before I go any further, I want to also let you guys know that this explanation also applies to those of you that only have Lightroom on your phones. You know, it's not just for the system. So if you only have Lightroom mobile on your phone, it still applies. All these principles apply to that. Okay, now let's move on. So we have the detail tab. Now under the detail tab, we have sharpening and noise reduction. Now for most images, I actually do sharpen them, and for all images on Lightroom actually adds sharpening for you automatically, but you can now choose to reduce or increase the sharpening depending on what you like. The noise reduction. Now I've explained noise before. You know, when you take pictures on your phone at night, yeah, I mean most phones nowadays have good night photography capabilities, but sometimes you take pictures with your phone at night, and if you don't use night mode, you can see that there's a lot of grain in your image, unpleasant grain, not the nice one that we get from like film pictures, just very unpleasant grain. And the same thing with like professional cameras. When you take your ISO too high, it gives you a lot of noise. So noise reduction is used to reduce the grain in your pictures, to smoothen them out, to correct it. For this image, there's no noise here. This picture was taken during the day, so it's perfect. There's no need for that. So I'm just going to skip here. Lens correction, chromatic aberration, and profile corrections apply to mostly cameras and lens problems. If your lens maybe compress the picture too much, if you click on profile correction to just spread it out and correct that for you. Chromatic aberration is when your camera, if you look at a picture, you see these kind of red, blue, and green lines around the edges of a picture, especially like on the lines of, you know, your subject or around your picture. You notice it. So removing the chromatic aberration would remove those weird colors that you see. We're going to go to effects. Now on the effects panel, on the effects tab, we have vignette, post-crop vignetting. So vignette is that dark circle that we have, or that circle that covers the edges of our pictures. You can either take the slider to the right, which brings the white vignette that no one uses, or you can take it to the left and get that dark one that we all use. Now it is just used to bring and draw more focus to the subject in the picture. So I'm just going to take the vignette to 22. I believe that's fine. The grain to, now the grain here is good grain. This is what you used to give your picture that film look that we're talking about. And I forgot to mention too, let's go back to the tone curve. If you want to have that faded film look, all you have to do is just drag the shadows up and then it gives you the film look. Yeah, it fades everything out. So you can see that it has that film look right now. But that's not what I'm going for, so I'm just going to take it back down. So you can also add grain to give your images that grainy look, but I'm not really going for that right now, so I'm good to take it out. Now the next thing is camera calibration. So this is a very powerful tab or section in Lightroom that can dramatically change your picture, but it's also very dangerous because you can really spoil your picture with this. You know, it's a very tricky thing. You know, you have to balance it out. So what I usually do is I just take the red primary to the right a little, I take the blue primary to the left a little, I take the green primary to the right, maybe 20, and then I now adjust the saturation accordingly. So I'm going to reduce the saturation of red. I'm going to reduce saturation of, increase saturation I mean, of blue. Then the green, I'm going to increase the saturation a little bit. Now if you notice, this is actually what gives the picture or the skin tones that golden look. So you can see now that the skin looks, it has that golden look on it, you know, it looks much better. Let's click on the before and after button to see what the picture looked like before and now. So before and after, wow, it looks really different. So you can also apply these principles to your own pictures when you're editing them. And like I said, we're done with the editing, so you can now go back to the basic panel and now add contrast if you want to, or add more clarity or whatever you want to do. Now the last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is this bar that has these 6 tools. So if you look up, you see this bar on top. It has the crop tool, the radial, what's this called, the healing brush, the spot removal tool, sorry, the red eye tool, the gradient filter, the brush, and what's this called again? I've forgotten, but it's the radial filter I mean, sorry. Then yeah, the radial filter. So the crop tool is used to crop your images. If you want to crop for Instagram, all you have to do is just click on this original and then you see like different aspect ratios. If you want to crop for Instagram is either 4:5 or 8:10. Then you have other ratios here, you can make yours. Then when you click on O, you now see different styles of cropping, different formats that you can use to guide yourself. But for this picture, I'm just going to use this one, and yeah, I'm okay with this. I'm not really going to change anything about this image. It's perfect for me. So the next thing that we have here is the spot removal tool. Now you use this to remove spots from your face, pimples and all that. So I'm going to do that. Click on it. You can use your 2 fingers to slide up and down to increase the size of the brush. So I'm just going to click on our pimples to remove them, and they are gone like magic. So we are good. We have the radial filter. Yeah, so we have this filter. So what you can do with this is control the gradient filter. I mean, what you can do with this is you can control the parts that you cover with the filter. So you can, like now I've covered this angle, I can decide to increase it. Sorry, I need water actually, my throat is dry. you can use this filter to now control the exposure, saturation, contrast of the area that you've covered. You can do that, you can manipulate it however you want, but I'm not going to use it in this image. You also have the red eye tool. If you have like red eyes for maybe flash photography or anything, you can use it to correct that. The radial filter too is the same thing, it's the same as the gradient filter, but it's just in a circular form. I'm not using that. So okay, I think I should actually use it. You can use it to also control the, control what you cover, maybe the exposure, saturation, contrast. I'm just going to use it to draw more focus to our face. I'm going to increase the I'm actually not going to do it, but I would have used it to control and increase the exposure of our face to draw more attention to our face, but our face is fine. I'm going to leave it like that. Then the next thing that we have is the brush tool. So one thing that you should do, if you can, is use the brush tool to paint on the eyes. I mean, you can use the brush tool to also paint on any other thing, but paint on the eyes and increase the saturation and brightness of the eyes, because it makes a huge difference in your pictures. Don't overdo it and give us those vampire eyes, because I know that some of you will try it, but don't do that. So I'm just going to paint on her eyes here and increase the exposure. Don't do this, just take it up a little. I'm going to take out the brightness of the exposure of our eyes a little, and I'm going to change, no, not the temperature, I'm going to saturate it, add more saturation to our eyes, make them more colorful, make them pop, add more contrast to her eyes. And yeah, that's fine. So you can see now that you're just painting on her eyes and editing them has made like a huge difference in the image. This is before and this is after. It's a very subtle thing, but it adds a lot of drama to the picture. So we've come to the end of today's video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video, it really helps the channel. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Daniel_Are. I'll leave it in the description below, and I hope you use these things to edit your own pictures, and I hope you learned something today. So I'll see you guys next time. Peace.